My husband accused me of being too friendly with his coworker. Then I found out he'd been paying his coworker to flirt with me to see if I'd cheat. It started when Grant brought home his new colleague from the marketing department. Tall, charming, always dressed impeccably. His name was Edison, and he'd just transferred from the Seattle office. Grant insisted we invite him over for dinner since he didn't know anyone in town yet. I made lasagna. Edison complimented everything. The food, the wine selection, our house, even the way I'd arranged the throw pillows on the couch. I thought he was just being polite. Grant seemed pleased we were getting along. Then Edison started showing up more often. Game nights, barbecues, random Tuesday evenings when Grant would text saying he was bringing someone home. Always Edison. He'd laugh at my jokes a little too long, stand a little too close when I was cooking, ask detailed questions about my day, my interests, my childhood. That's when Grant's comments started. Why did I touch Edison's arm when I talked? Why did I wear that particular dress when he was coming over? Was I trying to impress someone? I was genuinely confused. I'd been married for 8 years and never given him a reason to doubt me. The accusations escalated. Grant would leave early for work, come home late, barely speak to me. When I tried to discuss it, he'd say I was deflecting from my inappropriate behavior. He started making lists. Times I'd smiled too warmly. Moments I'd made eye contact too long. Once he got angry because I'd offered Edison the last piece of dessert. I started feeling guilty for things I hadn't done. Maybe I was too friendly. Maybe I should have been more distant. I stopped wearing anything remotely fitted. I avoided being alone in rooms with any man, including my own brother. I'd catch myself monitoring my facial expressions, worried a smile might be misinterpreted. Edison kept coming around though. He seemed oblivious to the tension. Or maybe he wasn't. Sometimes I'd notice him watching Grant's reactions more than mine. Once I caught them having a quiet conversation in our driveway that ended abruptly when I walked outside. Last Tuesday, everything shattered. Grant left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. A Venmo notification popped up. Payment to Edison Wallace, $500. The memo said, final payment, test complete. Thanks, man. My hands went cold. I clicked on Grant's messages before I could stop myself. There were dozens between him and Edison. Detailed instructions on how to flirt with me, what compliments to use, when to touch my arm, how to gauge my reactions, when to escalate. She's too trusting, Grant had written back in February. I need to know if she'd actually cheat given the opportunity. My dad's affair destroyed my mom. I won't let that happen to me. Edison had replied, this feels wrong. She clearly loves you. Maybe just talk to her? Grant increased the payment amount, $200 more per week. Edison had continued for 5 months. Every dinner, every conversation, every moment I'd questioned my own behavior had been orchestrated, purchased. I'd been the subject of an experiment I never consented to. I sat on our kitchen floor reading message after message, Grant rating my responses on a scale of 1 to 10, Edison reporting back like I was a lab rat, my husband analyzing whether I was faithful enough to keep. There were notes about my body language. Subject maintained distance when I moved closer, score 9-10. About my conversation topics. She redirected conversation to include Grant, score 8-10. About my clothing choices. Wore jeans and oversized sweater despite warm weather, possibly dressing down deliberately, score 7-10. I felt like I was reading a scientific study, except the subject was me. My marriage was the experiment, and I'd never signed a consent form. I found spreadsheets. Actual spreadsheets tracking my behavior. Columns for date, scenario, my response, Edison's assessment, Grant's notes, color-coded, with formulas calculating my overall fidelity score. I was currently at 87%. Apparently that was acceptable, but not ideal. My phone rang. Grant. I let it go to voicemail. He was calling to say he'd be late, working on a big project. The irony wasn't lost on me. How many of his late nights had been about this? Planning new tests? Analyzing my performance? I kept scrolling, found a document titled Phase 2. It outlined escalated scenarios. Edison was supposed to confess feelings for me, send me text messages when Grant was out of town, ask me to meet him alone. Each scenario had predicted outcomes and scoring rubrics. We'd never made it to Phase 2, because I'd passed Phase 1 so thoroughly that Grant had concluded the test. Subject shows no signs of reciprocating interest. Maintaining test longer risks exposure. Recommend ending experiment. I packed a bag while he was at work, left my ring on the counter with printed copies of his messages. My sister picked me up within the hour. What happened? She asked as I threw my bag in her back seat. I couldn't speak, just handed her my phone with Grant's messages open. She read while sitting in our driveway. Her face went from confused to horrified. He did what? For 5 months. Paid Edison to flirt with me. Documented everything. Made spreadsheets. Spreadsheets? Spreadsheets. She drove. I stared out the window. Everything looked different. The coffee shop where I'd met Grant for our first date, the park where he'd proposed, the grocery store where we did our weekly shopping, all of it contaminated now by the knowledge that he'd never trusted me, not even at the beginning. Grant called 19 times that night. I didn't answer. Edison called the next day. I'm sorry, I should have told you. He said he just needed reassurance, but it got out of hand. I hung up and blocked both numbers. I met with a divorce lawyer on Thursday. Her name was Francine, and she specialized in high-conflict divorces. She listened to my story without interrupting, took notes, asked clarifying questions. Do you have evidence? She asked. I showed her everything. The laptop screenshots, the Venmo payments, the spreadsheets, the Phase 2 document. Francine's eyebrows went up. This is beyond anything I've seen. And I've seen a lot. This is systematic psychological manipulation. We can use this. But when I returned home to pack more clothes, I found something in Grant's desk drawer. A second phone, with messages that made his loyalty test look like nothing. The phone was an older model. Cheap. The kind you buy with cash at a convenience store. I turned it on. The battery was nearly dead, but there was enough charge to see the message history. There were conversations with women I'd never heard of. Isabel, Kathleen, Rochelle. The timestamps went back 2 years. Before Edison, before the loyalty test, before Grant had ever accused me of anything. The pattern was identical each time. Grant would match with them on dating apps, chat for weeks, arrange to meet. Then he'd create elaborate scenarios to test their faithfulness. He'd send fake messages from ex-boyfriends, have friends hit on them at bars, create fictional emergencies to see how they'd react. One woman, Isabel, had been engaged to him. The messages showed Grant orchestrating a scenario where his cousin confessed feelings for her at a family dinner. When she politely declined but mentioned it made her uncomfortable, Grant called off the engagement. Failed the test. He'd written to someone. Can't trust her. I scrolled through her messages. She'd been devastated, confused, blamed herself. What did I do wrong? She texted him. Please just tell me what I did wrong. Grant never answered. Just blocked her number and moved on. Kathleen had dated him for 8 months. Grant paid a stranger to approach her at the gym and ask for her number. She said no and immediately told Grant about it. He still broke up with her. Too friendly with the guy, smiled too much, can't risk it. The messages showed Kathleen spiraling. I told you about it immediately. I did nothing wrong. Why are you punishing me for being polite? Grant's response was cold. If you'd really loved me, you would have been hostile to any man who approached you. Your politeness shows you're open to other options. Rochelle lasted 6 weeks. Grant created a fake Facebook profile and sent her a message pretending to be an old high school friend. When she responded politely, he accused her of emotional cheating. It was just a conversation, she'd written. I haven't seen him in 10 years. I mentioned you in my second message. You responded at all, Grant had replied. That's the problem. You entertained another man's attention. That's betrayal. I scrolled through months of messages. Grant discussing his tests with someone named Felix, planning elaborate scenarios, analyzing results, rating women's performances. My stomach turned. Felix's messages were disturbing in a different way. He asked clinical questions. How did she score on emotional availability? Did she demonstrate appropriate boundary setting? What was her attachment style? I realized Felix wasn't just a friend. He was Grant's therapist, or had been. A therapist helping him design tests to torture women. Then I found messages about me, from before we were married. Grant had tested me too. I just hadn't known it. The random guy who'd hit on me at my friend's wedding. Grant's doing. The mysterious text from a wrong number that turned into a friendly conversation. Grant's doing. The coworker at my old job who'd asked me to coffee. All orchestrated. She passed. Grant had written to Felix. Rejected every advance. Showed me every message. I think she's the one. I'd passed his test. So he'd married me. And then he'd kept testing. I sat in our bedroom holding this phone, realizing my entire marriage had been an audit. Every interaction monitored. Every friendship scrutinized. Every moment analyzed for signs of betrayal that didn't exist. The text with Felix revealed more. Felix was Grant's therapist, or had been. Grant had stopped seeing him 2 years ago when Felix refused to support the testing anymore. This isn't healthy, Felix had written. You're sabotaging relationships with good women because of your father's choices. I can't help you if you won't address the real issue. Grant had found a new therapist, Dr. Patricia Wells. The messages showed her encouraging his behavior, validating his paranoia, suggesting new tests. Have you considered testing her response to financial stress? Or introducing an attractive female friend to see if she feels threatened? I felt sick. A licensed therapist was helping him torment women. I called Francine immediately. I found more, a lot more. She came to my sister's apartment that evening, spread everything out on the dining table. Laptop screenshots, burner phone messages, Venmo receipts, the spreadsheets. This is beyond what I expected, she said. This is psychological abuse, possibly fraud, given he paid Edison under false pretenses. And if this therapist is truly encouraging this behavior, she could lose her license. What do? We file for divorce. We document everything. And I think you need to find these other women. They deserve to know. We filed for divorce the next day, and I did something else. I found Isabel on social media, then Kathleen, then Rochelle. I sent each of them a message with screenshots of Grant's texts about them. I'm Grant Holloway's wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. I found messages about you on his phone. I think you deserve to see them. Isabel responded first. I thought I was crazy. He made me feel like I'd done something wrong, like I destroyed our relationship by existing near other men. Thank you for this. Thank you for showing me it wasn't me. Kathleen replied within an hour. He destroyed my self-esteem. I've been in therapy for 2 years trying to understand what I did to make him leave. I stopped going to the gym, stopped talking to male colleagues. I thought I was the problem. Oh my God. I thought I was the problem. Rochelle called me directly. I need to tell you something. I reported him to the police last year. He started stalking me after we broke up, following me home, showing up at my work, sending messages from different numbers. They couldn't do anything without proof. Do you have proof? I had proof. Months of it, years of it. We compiled everything. Isabel, Kathleen, Rochelle, and I. We met at a coffee shop downtown. 4 women who'd never met but shared the same trauma. Isabel brought her own evidence. Text messages, emails, photos of gifts Grant had given her with tracking devices hidden inside. I found this in a teddy bear he gave me, she said, showing us a tiny GPS tracker. After we broke up, he always knew where I was. I thought it was coincidence. Kathleen had kept a journal documenting Grant's accusations, page after page of her trying to understand what she'd done wrong. June 15th. Grant angry because I smiled at the barista. Doesn't understand I was just being polite. Need to work on controlling my facial expressions. Reading it broke my heart. Rochelle had restraining order paperwork, police reports, documentation of Grant's escalating behavior after she'd ended things. He told my boss I was unstable, cost me my job, told my family I was on drugs. My own mother didn't believe me. We filed a joint complaint. Then we reported Dr. Patricia Wells to the state licensing board. The investigation moved quickly once they saw the evidence. Dr. Wells had violated so many ethical boundaries that her license was suspended pending a full hearing. Grant's employer put him on administrative leave. His world was crumbling. Grant found out when the police showed up at his office. He called me 37 times, left voice messages ranging from apologetic to threatening. You're ruining my life over nothing. I was protecting us. I was protecting you. Everything I did was because I love you too much to lose you. The last message was different. Quiet. You were supposed to be different. You were supposed to be the one who didn't betray me, but you did. You betrayed me by leaving. In his mind, I'd failed the ultimate test, the test of staying no matter what he did. My sister stayed with me that week, changed our locks, installed security cameras. Grant showed up twice. The first time, he stood on the lawn calling my name. Neighbors came outside. Someone called the police. He left before they arrived. The second time, he tried to break in through the back door. The alarm went off. Police arrested him for violating the restraining order I'd filed. He spent the night in jail. His mother bailed him out in the morning. His mother called me. What did you do to my son? He's falling apart. He loves you. Why are you doing this to him? Ask him about the spreadsheets, I said. Ask him about the other women. Ask him about the tracking devices and the fake profiles and the elaborate tests. He was just being careful. His father cheated on me. He's traumatized. You should have been more understanding. I hung up. Understanding. As if trauma justified abuse. As if being hurt gave you permission to hurt others. The divorce moved quickly once his lawyer saw the evidence. Grant wanted to settle, wanted to avoid everything becoming public record. I refused. I wanted every text, every payment, every manipulation documented in court. The trial lasted 4 days. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, domestic abuse advocates, women who'd experienced similar manipulation and wanted to see justice. Edison testified. He looked terrible, thinner, dark circles under his eyes. He explained how Grant had approached him, offered him money, described exactly how to flirt with me. I needed the cash, Edison said, looking at me, but I'm not proud of it. I should have told you immediately. I watched you change, watched you start doubting yourself. I knew what was happening and I let it continue because I needed the money. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm sorry. Grant's lawyer tried to discredit him. Isn't it true you accepted money to seduce another man's boyfriend's wife. I accepted money to flirt with her, Edison corrected. I never tried to seduce her. I never wanted to seduce her. I was uncomfortable from the start, but I had student loans and rent, and I justified it by telling myself I wasn't really hurting anyone. But you were hurting her? Yes, I was hurting her. I was helping her husband psychologically abuse her. I'm ashamed of that, Isabel testified. She was calm, articulate, devastating. She described meeting Grant on a dating app, the whirlwind romance, the engagement, then the tests that started small and grew. He'd leave his phone unlocked with a fake message on the screen, wanted to see if I'd read it. He'd tell me he was working late and then watch to see if I'd go out with friends. Every interaction became a potential trap. She described the cousin incident, how humiliated she'd felt, how she'd handled it perfectly, politely, immediately telling Grant what happened, and how he'd punished her anyway. He said if I'd really loved him, I would have been hostile, would have made a scene. My politeness was evidence of interest. What happened after he ended the engagement? Francine asked. I fell apart. I thought I'd done something wrong. I lost 20 pounds, couldn't sleep, couldn't work. My friends staged an intervention because they thought I was suicidal. I spent 6 months in intensive therapy trying to understand what I'd done to destroy my relationship. And now, after seeing the messages, now I'm angry. Angry that I blamed myself. Angry that I let his manipulation convince me I was broken. Angry that there are other women going through the same thing right now with other men and nobody believes them. Kathleen testified next. She was less composed, cried on the stand, described the 8 months she'd spent trying to meet Grant's impossible standards. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped going to the gym, stopped seeing male friends, changed my entire life trying to prove I was faithful, and it was never enough. She described the gym incident, how a stranger had approached her while she was on the treadmill, asked for her number, she'd said no, told Grant immediately, thought she'd handled it perfectly. He broke up with me 2 days later, said I'd smiled at the guy, said I'd been too nice when I rejected him, said if I'd really respected our relationship I would have been cold. How did that make you feel? Insane, like I was losing my mind. I started second-guessing every interaction, every smile, every word. I became terrified of being friendly to anyone, stopped making eye contact with men in public, crossed the street to avoid walking past them. I thought I was being careful. I didn't realize I was being traumatized. Rochelle's testimony was the hardest to hear. She described the 6 weeks she'd dated Grant, the fake Facebook profile, the accusation of emotional cheating, then the stalking that followed. He showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., banged on the door, screamed that I was a cheater, a liar, that I'd ruined everything. My neighbors called the police. She described the escalation, Grant creating fake profiles to send her threatening messages, telling her employer she was unstable, following her to work. I changed my number. He got the new one. I moved apartments. He found me. I filed a restraining order. He violated it. Nothing stopped him. What finally made him stop? He met someone new, found a new woman to test. I was yesterday's failed experiment, so he moved on. That woman was me. Grant's lawyer tried to argue it was just insecurity, that he'd been traumatized by his father's infidelity, that he needed help, not punishment. They called a character witness, Grant's mother. She testified that her ex-husband's affair had devastated the family, that Grant had found his father in bed with another woman when he was 16, that he'd never recovered. He's a good man dealing with trauma, she said. He just wanted to protect himself. Francine stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Holloway, were you aware your son paid people to deceive his partners? He was being careful. Were you aware he placed tracking devices in gifts? He wanted to keep them safe. Were you aware he created fake social media profiles to manufacture evidence of betrayal? He was protecting himself from being hurt. Were you aware he stalked Rochelle Martinez after she ended their relationship? She must have done something to provoke that. Were you aware that 4 different women have filed complaints against your son? They're all lying, trying to ruin him. Francine pulled out the evidence. The burner phone, the spreadsheets, the messages with Dr. Wells. Is this all lies, Mrs. Holloway? She couldn't answer, just sat there staring at the documents. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Mr. Holloway, you systematically manipulated multiple women over several years. You paid people to deceive your wife. You created false scenarios designed to manufacture evidence of betrayal where none existed. This is not insecurity. This is abuse. This is calculated, deliberate, sustained psychological abuse. I got everything. The house, his retirement accounts, alimony for 5 years. Grant got a criminal record for stalking Rochelle and a mandate for actual psychiatric treatment. Dr. Patricia Wells lost her license. The board found she'd violated ethical guidelines by encouraging harmful behavior rather than treating the underlying trauma. She tried to fight it, claimed she was just validating her client's feeling. The board reviewed her notes, found years of encouraging Grant's testing, suggesting new scenarios, celebrating when women failed. You weren't treating Mr. Holloway, the board chair said. You were enabling his abuse. That's not therapy. That's collaboration. But the real victory came 6 months later. Kathleen called me. I'm starting a support group for women who've experienced relationship manipulation. Would you be interested in helping? I met with her and Isabel at a coffee shop. We talked for hours about what we'd experienced. The self-doubt, the constant second-guessing, the feeling that we were going crazy. We'd all been through it. We'd all survived it. I thought I was the only one, Kathleen said. I thought I was too sensitive, too paranoid, that I was seeing problems that didn't exist. That's what they want, Isabel said. They want you to doubt your own reality. Makes it easier to control you. I thought about all the women who'd reached out after the trial. Dozens of them, each with their own story of manipulation, of tests disguised as love, of partners who'd made them prove their devotion through impossible standards. The support group started with 5 women. By month 4, we had 30 members. Women who'd been gaslit, manipulated, psychologically tested by partners who claimed to love them. We met every Tuesday evening, shared our stories, helped each other recognize red flags. One woman, Celeste, described how her ex-husband would forget conversations and then accuse her of lying about what was said, made her so uncertain of her own memory that she started recording their conversations. When she played them back to prove she was right, he accused her of trying to trap him. Another woman, Priscilla, talked about her ex-boyfriend's spontaneous tests. He'd tell her he was going out of town and then watch to see if she'd make plans without him. If she stayed home, she was clingy and dependent. If she went out with friends, she was disloyal and suspicious. There was no right answer. That was the point. I started seeing a therapist of my own, a good one. Dr. Monroe specialized in psychological abuse recovery. She helped me understand that Grant's behavior wasn't about me. It was never about me. I could have passed every test perfectly, and he would have invented new ones. People like Grant don't actually want partners, she explained during one session. They want puppets they can control. And when they can't find evidence of betrayal, they create it. But why? What's the point? Control. If you're constantly defending yourself, constantly proving your innocence, you're not looking at their behavior. You're not questioning why they need so much proof, why their trust is so fragile. You're too busy passing tests to notice you shouldn't have to take them. That hit me hard. All those months worrying about Grant's perception of me, never once questioning why his perception was so distorted, why he needed evidence when he had no reason to doubt me. You were gaslit into thinking trust was something you had to earn, Dr. Monroe continued, but trust is the foundation of relationships. It's given freely at the start. If someone requires you to constantly prove yourself, they don't trust you. They probably never will, because the problem isn't you. It's them. I started sleeping better, stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes, stopped analyzing my every interaction with men. I went to dinner with my brother without mentally preparing a defense for why I'd hugged him hello. I laughed at a cashier's joke without wondering if I'd smiled too much. I existed without performing. My sister helped me repaint the house. We covered Grant's gray walls with warm yellows and soft blues. I bought new furniture, plants, art, made the space mine instead of ours. You seem lighter, she said while we painted the bedroom, like someone removed a weight you'd been carrying. That's exactly what it feels like. I didn't realize how much energy it took. Monitoring myself constantly, second-guessing everything, it's exhausting. He was exhausting. The whole situation was exhausting, but you're free now. Free. It was true, I was free. Free from the tests. Free from the scrutiny. Free from the constant anxiety of wondering if I'd somehow fail at being faithful. Edison reached out once, asked if we could talk. I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a park downtown. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I just wanted you to know I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I thought money justified what I did, why I let it continue even when I saw what it was doing to you. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say I'm sorry, truly sorry. I looked at him, this man who'd invaded my home, my life, my sense of safety. Part of me wanted to scream, part of me wanted to forgive. Instead, I just felt tired. I appreciate you saying that, but I need you to understand something. You didn't just take Grant's money and play a role. You watched me doubt myself. You watched me change how I dressed, how I acted, how I existed in my own home. You watched me apologize for being friendly, for being myself, and you kept going. For months, he nodded, tears in his eyes. I know. I told myself it wasn't that serious, that you and Grant would work it out, that I was just making some extra money. I justified it in 100 different ways, but I knew. Deep down, I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway. Why? Student loans? Rent, credit card debt. I was drowning financially and Grant offered me a lifeline. I convinced myself you wouldn't get hurt because you'd pass the test. You'd prove you were faithful and everything would be fine. But that's not how it works. The test itself was the harm. Grant created an environment where I couldn't trust my own judgment, where every friendly gesture became suspicious. Every smile became evidence. That's not love, that's control. I understand that now. Too late, but I understand it. We didn't speak again after that. I didn't need his apology to heal. That had to come from inside. His guilt was his own burden to carry. Mine was learning to trust myself again. A year after the divorce, I went on my first date. His name was Camden and he taught high school biology. We met at a bookstore. He was buying field guides. I was buying a novel. We reached for the same book on the clearance table and laughed. You can have it, he said. No, you saw it first, I replied. How about we both buy it and then discuss it over coffee? I hesitated. My therapist had prepared me for this moment. Dating would trigger old fears. I'd want to analyze every gesture, every word. I'd want to test him before he could test me. Instead, I said yes. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into walks in the park. Camden was patient, understanding. When I finally told him about Grant, he listened without judgment. That's horrific, he said. I can't imagine doing that to someone. Trust is given freely, or it's not really trust. If you're constantly looking for evidence of betrayal, you'll find it, or you'll create it. Either way, the relationship is already over. We took things slow, very slow. I needed that. Camden never pushed, never demanded access to my phone, never questioned who I was texting, never got jealous when I mentioned male friends. 8 months in, we were at his apartment watching a movie. My phone buzzed. A text from my coworker about a project deadline. I showed Camden without thinking, just as part of our conversation. He looked confused. Why are you showing me that? I thought you'd want to know who was texting. I trust you. You don't need to prove anything to me. I started crying, right there on his couch, because that's what healthy looked like, and I'd forgotten. I'd been so conditioned to defend myself, to provide evidence, to prove my innocence that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be trusted. Camden held me while I cried, didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations, just held me. I'm sorry, I said eventually. I'm still unlearning things. Don't apologize. You went through hell. It's going to take time. I'm not going anywhere. And he wasn't. When I canceled plans because I was having a bad day, he didn't accuse me of avoiding him. When I needed space to process, he gave it without making me feel guilty. When I was ready to be close again, he was there. No games, no tests, no punishments disguised as protection. The support group continued to grow. We started a podcast, shared resources, created a website with information about psychological manipulation in relationships. Kathleen became a licensed counselor specializing in abuse recovery. Isabel went back to school for social work. Rochelle started a legal advocacy organization for domestic abuse survivors. We'd all been broken. We'd all rebuilt ourselves. And now we were helping others do the same. One episode of our podcast went viral. Red flags. You're being tested in your relationship. We described the behaviors, the manufactured scenarios, the impossible standards, the punishment for passing. Within a week, we had 50,000 downloads, women reaching out from around the world. My boyfriend does this, one email said. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the problem. Thank you for showing me I'm not. Another. I left my husband 2 years ago. Everyone said I was overreacting, that he just cared about me, but he was testing me, constantly. Your podcast validated everything I felt but couldn't articulate. We featured guests on the show, therapists explaining the psychology of control, lawyers discussing legal recourse, other survivors sharing their stories. Every episode ended the same way. If someone who claims to love you is constantly testing you, they don't actually love you. They love control. Grant reached out once, 2 years after the divorce. A long email about how therapy had changed him, how he understood now what he'd done, how sorry he was, how he hoped someday I could forgive him. I read it 3 times, looking for sincerity, finding only deflection. He talked about his trauma, his father's affair, his fear of abandonment, his anxiety. Never once did he say, I hurt you. Never once did he acknowledge the specific harm he'd caused. I deleted it without responding. His healing wasn't my responsibility. His apology didn't undo the damage. Some things you just have to let go. My brother got married that spring. At the reception, his best man made a toast about finding someone who sees you clearly and loves you anyway. I thought about Grant, about how he'd spent years looking for evidence of who I might become instead of seeing who I actually was. Camden squeezed my hand under the table. He saw me, the real me, the messy, complicated, sometimes insecure me, and he stayed. Not because I'd proven myself, but because he'd chosen to trust me from the start. I thought I'd never trust again after Grant. But trust isn't something you give to everyone. It's something you give to people who earn it, who show up consistently, who don't play games or manufacture tests, who love you on your worst days and your best days and all the regular days in between. Dr. Monroe told me something in one of our last sessions that stuck with me. You didn't fail Grant's tests. Grant failed at being a decent human being. Those are not the same thing. She was right. I'd spent years trying to pass an exam that was designed to be impossible. You can't prove a negative. You can't prove you'll never cheat. You can only be faithful each day and hope that's enough. With Grant, it was never enough. With Camden, it was everything. The house sold last month. I bought a smaller place across town. Fresh start. New memories. I painted the bedroom a soft green, hung photos of my sister, my friends, the women from the support group, people who actually knew me, who didn't need to test me to trust me. On the anniversary of finding that second phone, Kathleen, Isabel, Rochelle, and I met for dinner. We toasted to survival, to healing, to the lives we built after everything fell apart. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found the laptop? Isabel asked. I thought about it. I'd still be there, still monitoring my smile, still apologizing for being friendly, still slowly disappearing. We all would have disappeared eventually, Kathleen said quietly. That's what men like Grant want. Women who are so busy proving their innocence that they forget to live their lives. Rochelle raised her glass. To living our lives. On our terms. We clinked glasses. 4 women who'd been tested and found wanting. Not because we'd failed, but because the tests themselves were designed to destroy us. We'd survived. We'd rebuilt. And we'd made sure other women knew the warning signs before it was too late. Grant's Instagram still exists. He's in a new relationship. She looks young, happy, hopeful. I thought about reaching out, warning her, but I learned from Dr. Monroe that you can't save people who don't know they need saving. You can only be there when they're ready to leave. I screenshot his profile anyway, saved it to a folder with his old accounts, just in case she ever needs it. Just in case she ever types his name into Google and finds the articles about the trial. Just in case she needs to know she's not crazy. Because that's what Grant took from all of us. Our sense of reality. Our ability to trust our own perceptions. He'd twist situations until we doubted our memories. He'd manufacture evidence until we believed his narrative instead of our own eyes. Getting that back. That certainty that I'm not insane. That I'm not the problem. That was harder than the divorce. Harder than the trial. Harder than anything. But I got it back. We all did. And now we help others get it back too. The support group meets in a community center now. Tuesday evenings at 7. We've had women come from 5 different states. Some stay for months, some just need a few sessions, but they all leave understanding something crucial. If someone who claims to love you is constantly testing you, they don't actually love you. They love control. Love doesn't require proof. It doesn't demand constant evidence. It doesn't set up scenarios to catch you failing. Real love assumes the best, gives you the benefit of the doubt, trusts you until you give a genuine reason not to. Grant never learned that. Maybe he never will. Dr. Wells had encouraged his worst instincts instead of treating them, and his mother had modeled the same dysfunction, blaming his father's affair for Grant's behavior, as if being hurt gave you permission to hurt others endlessly. But I learned something better. I learned that surviving someone's manipulation doesn't make you damaged. It makes you informed, aware, stronger than you were before. Camden and I moved in together last month. It was terrifying, wonderful, normal. We grocery shop. We argue about where to hang artwork. We cook dinner together and leave dishes in the sink overnight. We exist in mundane, beautiful, untested daily life. Sometimes I still catch myself explaining things I don't need to explain, showing him receipts he didn't ask to see, providing alibis for time he never questioned. Old habits die hard, but Camden gently reminds me, I believe you. You don't need to prove anything. And slowly, I'm learning to believe him, to believe myself. The other day, a man at the coffee shop started chatting with me while Camden was in the bathroom, asked about the book I was reading, made a joke, left before Camden returned. I felt that old panic rising. Should I tell him? Should I explain? Will he wonder why I didn't mention it? Then I thought, nothing happened. A stranger-made conversation. That's normal human interaction. I don't need to report every pleasant exchange like it's evidence of potential betrayal. I told Camden anyway, just as part of my day. Some guy at the coffee shop had read the same book. We talked about the ending for a minute. Cool, he said. Did you like his take on it? That was it. No interrogation, no analysis, no test. Just trust, just love, just life. I thought about Edison sometimes. Wondered if he ever thought about what he did, if he understood the real cost. It wasn't just the money Grant paid him. It was my sense of safety in my own home, my ability to be myself without calculating every gesture, my belief that I deserved trust without having to earn it through impossible standards. But mostly I thought about what I'd gained. My sister and I were closer than ever. The friendships with Kathleen, Isabel, and Rochelle were deep and real. I'd learned to spot manipulation, to trust my instincts, to walk away from people who made me question my reality. Grant taught me something valuable, though not what he intended. He taught me that some people will never believe in you no matter how perfectly you perform. And once you accept that, you stop performing. You start living. Dr. Monroe retired last year. On our final session, she asked me what I'd learned through all this. That I was never the problem, I said. That trust can't be tested. That love doesn't require proof. She smiled. You've come so far. Do you know what I saw in you that first session? A woman who'd forgotten she existed, who'd become a collection of behaviors designed to pass someone else's assessment. Now look at you. You're just yourself. Just myself. It sounded so simple. But after years of performing, of monitoring, of constantly adjusting to Grant's unstable standards, being myself felt revolutionary. I still have the printouts from Grant's messages, the evidence from the trial. I keep them in a box in my closet. Not because I need them, but because on hard days when I doubt myself, I can look at them and remember, this happened. It was real. I wasn't crazy. He was cruel. The statute of limitations for some of Grant's behavior expires next year. Part of me wants to pursue more charges. Part of me just wants to let it go. Some days I feel both at once, but I don't have to decide now. That's another thing I learned. I'm allowed to change my mind, to take my time, to not have all the answers immediately. Grant wanted instant proof, immediate evidence, constant validation. I give myself patience instead, grace, understanding, the things he never offered me. Camden proposed last month. We were hiking. No elaborate setup, no audience, just us on a trail we'd walked dozens of times. He stopped at the overlook and said, I want to keep doing this with you. All of it. Forever. I cried. Not sad tears, not scared tears, just tears that come when something is exactly right. When there's no test to pass, no hidden agenda, just one person seeing another clearly and choosing them anyway. I said yes, obviously, but I also told him I needed time before we set a date. Years of marriage to Grant had left marks. I needed to make sure I was saying yes because I wanted to, not because I was performing again. Take all the time you need, he said. I'm not going anywhere. And he meant it. No ultimatums, no tests, no timeline I had to meet to prove I was serious. Just patience, just trust, just love. That's the real ending to this story. Not the divorce, not the trial, not even the healing. The ending is learning that I deserve someone who doesn't need to test me, who doesn't pay people to catch me failing, who just believes in me from the start. Grant wanted to protect himself from betrayal by controlling every variable. He lost everything instead. His marriage, his reputation, his career, his freedom. I wanted to survive, to rebuild, to learn, and I got all of that. Plus friendships that matter. Work I'm proud of. A partner who actually sees me. A life I don't have to defend. I won. Not because I passed his tests, but because I stopped taking them. And that made all the difference.